In my recent days of running the shop, I've met all sorts of customers, young and old. Each one brings a different emotional experience, something I truly cherish. So today, I'll share two stories about some interesting customers. The young man renting scaffolding to paint a house. On a beautiful day, I left my wife in charge of the store while I went to buy breakfast. A young-looking customer walked in, but he couldn't find anyone, not even my wife, whom I had asked to watch the front before I left. A moment later, my wife appeared from somewhere and started talking to him. It turned out he wanted to rent some scaffolding. How did I know she wasn't watching the shop as promised? I saw it on the security camera. My wife called me. "Hey, a customer is here to rent scaffolding. You need to come back." I was still at the market buying food, so I asked her to help him. The customer was a young man, about 19 or 20 years old, wearing an old work shirt splattered with paint, faded jeans, and dirty canvas shoes. He entered the shop a bit shyly, but his eyes lit up when he saw the brand new sets of scaffolding stacked neatly in the corner. My scaffolding is good quality, sturdy iron frames with a distinctive blue anti-rust paint, not the cheap or old kind you find elsewhere. My wife later told me that he asked to rent it right away without much haggling. "Ma'am, this scaffolding is so new and nice. Can I rent all of it? I need it urgently to paint a house for my client." My wife smiled and said, "Go ahead and look. We rent it out for a cheap price." He nodded eagerly, running his hand over the iron frame as if he were inspecting a treasure. I understood. For painters like him, good scaffolding is the most critical safety factor. When you're working at heights, a loose frame can easily lead to an accident. I once saw a friend fall from old scaffolding and break his leg. He was hospitalized for a month. Since then, I've only stocked high-quality equipment, even if it costs a bit more. About half an hour later, I got back to the shop. The smell of new paint and steel filled the humid morning air. The young man was still standing there, his eyes fixed on the pile of scaffolding. "Hello," I greeted him. "Do you need to rent some scaffolding?" He turned, offering a shy smile. "Yes, sir, I need it urgently. The homeowner is pushing me to finish painting before their housewarming party." I nodded and struck up a conversation. Since it was my first time meeting him, I asked a few questions to be friendly. I usually rent each set for 50 cents, which is about 12,000 Vietnamese dong. Even though he was renting a lot, I kept the price the same. It's not that I'm stingy, but I do it to maintain the market price and avoid undercutting the other shops around here. When he heard the price, he didn't complain at all. He just said, "Sir, can I rent this whole lot? I need many sets to paint a large house." I was surprised, as customers usually only rent a few sets at a time. But seeing his enthusiastic expression, I agreed immediately. While he was selecting the pieces, I took out a can of spray paint to mark each set. This is a long-standing habit of mine, ever since a customer returned someone else's old scaffolding by mistake. My sets are still new, and it would be a shame if they got mixed up. I sprayed small red marks on the frames, explaining as I worked. "I'm marking these to make them easier to identify. I hope you don't mind." He smiled. "Of course, sir. I understand." We had more time to talk as he carried the scaffolding out to a small truck parked outside, an old vehicle with a rattling engine. After finishing loading the scaffolding onto the truck, he came back over to me, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "Sir, my name is Kwong. I live just 2 kilometers away, in the hamlet across the river." "Nice to meet you, Kwong. I'm Kwok," I said, nodding. "Are you a painter by trade?" Kwong's voice was deep but full of determination. "Yes, sir. I started painting when I was 14. I'm 19 now, so I have about 5 years of experience. My family has had a hard time. My father passed away early, and my mother stays home to raise my younger sibling. I had to start working at a young age to earn money." His words moved me. At his age, many city kids are still in university, having fun, while Kwong was already struggling to face the harsh realities of life. I thought of my own son, who is about the same age, but is studying in Hanoi and has never had to worry about such things. "You're very impressive. I admire you," I told him. Kwong just smiled. "I just try my best, sir. Getting back to business, I asked, how many days do you need to rent it for? About a week, Kwong replied. I'll return it as soon as I'm done. I always return things on time. We settled the price, he paid the deposit, and then he finished loading the scaffolding onto his truck. Before leaving, Kwong shook my hand. Thank you both so much. His truck rolled away, kicking up a cloud of dust. I stood there watching him go, lost in thought. Life in this shop teaches me many things. It's not always just about buying and selling, but also about the human stories and the circumstances that make you appreciate what you have even more. A mild-mannered, middle-aged customer who likes to haggle. The sound of a motorbike stopping outside made me look up. A middle-aged man walked in slowly, wearing an old blue shirt, brown trousers, and a pair of slippers. He looked familiar, like he was from the same village, maybe from about 3 kilometers away. He walked straight to the section with corrugated iron and box section steel, his eyes scanning everything as he touched a few of the steel bars. I set my grass cutter aside, wiped my hands, and asked, "What can I help you with, sir?" He turned around. "Yes, I'd like to see your prices for iron sheets and box section steel." I smiled. "You can rest assured, sir, our prices are the best in the area. The 0.4 millimeter corrugated iron sheeting is 50,000 VND per meter, and the 4x8 box section steel is 120,000 VND per 6-meter bar." He nodded, then said, "I'm buying a lot. Can you give me a little discount?" I was used to this. Customers here often haggle, even when the prices are already low. "How much are you planning to buy? I can calculate the best price for you." He replied, 15 meters of iron sheeting and a few bars of steel. It wasn't a very large quantity, but if I refused to give a discount, I might lose the customer. I thought to myself, fine, I'll give a small discount to keep his business. I quoted him a new price, 5% lower. While he waited, he explained, "I'm buying this to build a coop for my chicks. They keep dying when I let them roam outside because of disease and snakes." I laughed. "You're right, sir. It's the same at my house. Chicks are very fragile. You have to build a sturdy coop." He nodded, his eyes lighting up when he saw that I understood. I asked him, "Are you building a big coop since you're buying so much?" "Yes, I'm raising about 50 of them to sell for extra money during the Tet holiday." The conversation made the atmosphere more friendly. I quickly flattened the metal sheet and cut it to the dimensions he requested. The sheet was quite long, which made cutting it difficult and required a pair of specialized shears. While he waited for me to cut the sheet, I asked him to pull the steel bars out to his vehicle. After struggling for a while, I still couldn't cut it by myself. It was just too long. Eventually, the customer came in to help. The sound of shearing metal filled the space. Even though my hands were aching, I had to finish the job. Together, we carried the heavy roll of sheet metal outside. It was a real struggle even for the two of us. When everything was done, he came to the counter to pay. To my surprise, he was holding a piece of paper with the total amount written on it. I took out my phone to calculate it myself, and his number was exactly right. "Wow, that's amazing! When did you calculate that so quickly? You must have been great at math in school," I said. He laughed. "It was easy. My phone has a calculator." I was genuinely impressed. There are many people like him in the countryside. They may not have a high level of formal education, but they are incredibly sharp with practical calculations. After he paid, I asked for his name. "What's your name, so it's easier for me to address you next time?" "My name is Nia. I'm from Dong Village." I shook his hand. "I wish you success with your farm, and I hope your chickens grow up big and healthy." Mr. Nia smiled, got on his motorbike, and left, leaving a quiet stillness in the shop.